Hello, wonderful wanderers of the internet. When I think of 2024 gaming, I think of old man Switch petering out of energy, just getting a couple more meaningful releases out before the end of his generation, as well as looking at many Game of the Year lists and going, well, I played one of those games. So be rest assured this list will be plenty unique. So, without wasting any more time, let's look at my top 10 games that came out in 2024, or maybe didn't come out in 2024. You'll have to wait and see.
Let's go.
All my friends were playing this hot new game called Cyberpunk the other year, and saying that everything's all fixed up and it's all better now and I should go check it out. Well, I'm glad to say I finally caved and picked up Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk bartending action Valhalla, that is. Yes, I may have picked up the wrong game on purpose, but this game captured my heart long before I ever saw the title screen. Yes, while I was meandering the YouTubes, I came across this game's OST on autoplay, and ended up accidentally listening to the whole 2-hour playlist, and it was incredible. So Valhalla has the benefit of being the only game I've ever purchased just because of its boppin' beats. This is Valhalla, a visual novel bartending game where you serve drinks and save lives. As you do, you'll learn about all these customers, each with dire struggles in this dystopian city, who are just trying to get by with just one more drink, and a friendly word from the local bartender could be the difference between making or breaking their day. Every single customer was so interesting to learn about, not you, and I found myself giddy with excitement whenever a favorite regular walked in the door. There's Say, the Valkyrie police officer, who is simply the most caring in the world, who I can't help but cheer on as she tries to protect the citizens of this broken city, no matter the cost. Then Alma, your supportive best friend, who swings by to talk about whatever, just trading casual jokes and stories of the past. And make drinks correctly, since these quirky customers have pretty significant impacts on the story. That is, as long as you pay your rent on time, or you may end up with the bad ending like me. I knew I shouldn't have bought that game console. But there's more to life than just work. After a shift, you'll be able to chill at your apartment, scroll the news for all the happenings in the city, and buy some decorations, or pay that impending rent payment. The longer we work, the more we learn about this city's brutal reality and the conflict that's popping up everywhere. As a simple bartender, all we can really do is offer an ear to the people's woes in this time of need. It may sound bleak, but the conversations focus on hope on even the toughest of days. They tackle real-world situations and talk through them in a matter-of-fact way that soothes the soul and offers comfort wherever you are in life. The bar of Valhalla was my own personal little safe space full of peace and tranquility, and I hope it can be the same for you. So what are you waiting for? It's time to mix drinks and change lives. You really can't beat the feeling of a game of Mario Party. The hooting and the hollering and blaming and name-calling as everyone scrambles to get to the top. Oh, this guy's got way more stars, he's totally gonna win. Only to sneak in and steal the win for yourself. Yes. Mario Party Jamboree is the newest installment of Mario Party, and in my humble opinion is the best of this generation. With 7 whole boards to choose from, with 2 being remakes and 5 being new, it simply has the most to offer out of any of the recent Mario Parties. I mean, my favorite maps have got to be the Bowser map for its mechanic of the changing walkway and this 1 in a million mysterious vault that if you manage to open somehow, you are sure to win. I might be a little biased though, because I opened the vault and there is no greater feeling, I assure you. My other fave is the Mega Wiggler for its simple board design with the fun switching central path of the Wiggler in the middle. And just look at all the delicious food they're cooking. Is Goomba holding a pan in his mouth? He's got some chompers of steel. Of course, minigames are always the star of the show, and we've got a solid mix of old and new. I'll always be glad to see you again. Domination, my love. My favorite new games have got to be the Tilt-A-Golf and Hot Cross Blocks. Tilt-A-Golf is so satisfying to get the golf ball to zip right into the hole and time your ball hop just right in order to, as my old coach would say, take the tangent. Wait, I looked up a picture and realized this is the hypotenuse. What does take the tangent even mean? Hot Cross Blocks is a simple game where you simply pick blocks in order to cross this gap, but it always ends in hilarity and screaming as your friend always takes the block that you need, even if they can't use it, Adam. Also, when the legendary 3x3 shows up and everybody grabs it immediately with no hesitation, what a bunch of fools! I played through the other modes as well, and while I did enjoy the single player campaign, all the other modes are pretty much a one and done for me. I would have taken more minigames in the main mode instead of being split between these side modes any day. But I will say I always took the opportunity to make my friends try Koopa Flight School at least once so I could laugh at the ridiculous poses they have to make from these controls. Truly a solid Mario Party all around that I will be playing for many years to come.
And now I gotta keep my voice down because this is a game I thought I'd never play. You see, if this got out, it would ruin my Nintendo fanboy image. It's an action stealth game unlike anything before it. This is Metal Gear.
I snagged the collection this year and ended up playing through Metal Gear Solid and Metal Gear at the same time. Solid is obviously the better game, but it was fun to see the origins of its items, mechanics, Foxhound, and Big Boss all in the original Metal Gear. The control scheme of this game took some getting used to though. I kept forgetting about first-person mode, which made a lot of puzzles way harder than they needed to be. But what was most surprising about this game is how much it felt like a Metroidvania, with key items that unlock new areas, dotted with major bosses, as you slowly unravel the complex web that is Shadow Moses. The standouts of this game, though, have to be the story and the bosses. I don't even know where to start when describing this story, but that's okay, because most of the time you play this game, Snake will have no idea what's going on either. As you bumble around Shadow Moses, trying to solve the mystery of who this new Foxhound is, and what's causing all these mysterious deaths. The bosses stood out to me because they're not like that standard Zelda structure I'm used to. You know, the one. You take out your specific item, whack the enemy with it, and they go down in 3 cycles. Instead, the focus is on strategy and positioning Snake in a way that you can safely deal damage while staying out of the enemy sights. This builds off of the stealth gameplay that you've already been focusing on while sneaking around Shadow Moses, as you're not an unstoppable tank in this game, just a little man with a pea shooter against impossible odds. I particularly love the Raven fight in the storehouse because you have to run around and escape his insane Gatling gun and use the Nikita to stealthily hit him from behind. The game's plot twist always got a whoa or dude, no way out of me, always keeping me excited on what might happen next, and this had me push through some of the stiffer gameplay and made me feel like the tough as nails war hero that Solid Snake is. Truly a great series, and I can't wait to check out the remake in 2025. I may be a bit of a Nintendo fan and enjoyer of classic consoles, so that means there's very few cult classic Nintendo games that I haven't gotten around to yet. But for the first time ever, I dusted off my Super Nintendo, booted up that bad boy, and started playing the legendary Chronotrigger. And I was hooked instantly. This was the perfect game to cozy up with my new cat Bella on the couch and bust out my SNES Classic controller for maximum authenticity. The game opens with a cozy little fair with light dialogue choices as you run around this fair with a fun girl named Marl, which, after a whole kidnapping and rescue plot, you find yourself on trial for kidnapping Marl, and every little minute decision that you made in that festival is pulled up as evidence. Did you help this random kid find her cat? No? Well, that means you must be a mean-spirited person. When you bumped into Marl, did you check if she was okay? Or did you greedily pick up this shiny pendant? Oh, you picked up the shiny pendant? Guess you're a miserable little Scrooge! Jail this criminal! It's such a good sequence that makes you feel like every little action you take will have serious repercussions in the future, which segues into the rest of the game, where you'll be doing various deeds in the past in order to have serious consequences in the future. And it feels so satisfying to set up these events in the past and watch the domino effect in the future. It really makes you feel like, as a player, you have the ability to change the world, as long as you're smart about it. While playing the game, I kinda just felt like I was doing whatever linear tasks were in front of me, but it seems like this game is actually pretty open-ended. For starters, very early in the game, the portal to the final boss is opened, and you can take it at any time for various different endings. But for most players, there'll be so many shiny objects on the horizon, or side quests to immerse yourselves in all these different time periods, that you'll probably get distracted by the next thing immediately, just like many other games that I love to play. Similar to Metal Gear though, Chrono Trigger's twists and turns were always a delight. Heck, at the beginning, I just thought I was going to defeat mages and stop the resurrection of Lavos to save the world, but then I find out that, spoiler warning, he's the son of a queen from 10,000 years in the past who's actually trying to awaken Lavos so that he can kill him and become a recruitable member. What is happening? Even now, I get lost trying to recall these plot details because it is just so tense. But let it be known that there is one moment in particular that is so incredible that you couldn't even pay me to spoil it, but it literally had my jaw on the ground. Also, let's talk about the battle system. I've only played with this action time battle system in Final Fantasy VII, But it works great here as well, and the addition of all the various combo moves had me mixing up my party constantly to get all the different techniques. But for most of it, my main gang was just Chrono, Frog, and Marl. Until I got Magus at the end and just swapped out Frog for him because Magus is kind of broken. Albeit, it's a kind of cruel party switch based on the relationship they share, but that's just how the cookie crumbles, what are you gonna do? Truly an incredible experience from start to end, and I'm sure I'll be going back soon to get one of those other endings. Usually, it's not until we get to the top 5 that I say something along the lines of, oh, the rest of these games are just so good, they could all be in my favorite games list. But this year, that starts at top 6, because, and I can't believe I'm gonna say this, but number 6 is Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. I know, it hurts me to put Zelda this low too, but you gotta understand, there's just some really good games coming up later on, so put away the pitchforks, please. Echoes of Wisdom is our long-awaited return to 2D that we haven't seen since Link Between Worlds back in 2013, and it comes with all the fun of a modern 3D Zelda. We've got some mechanics like Bind that looks suspiciously familiar to Ultra Hand and Tears of the Kingdom, various gear that Zelda can wear that changes her abilities, and even a crafting system for things like smoothies. But most importantly of all are the echoes. Yes, in this game you can walk up to most objects, smack that ZR button, and bam! Now you can recreate this echo anywhere in the world. This ingenious little design element radically transforms how you can interact with the world. No longer are trees there to border paths. They're simply another path themselves. I tried so hard to climb this hill at the start of the game, but didn't quite have enough oomph. But it captures a feeling that I love so much in games, where it feels like the player is empowered enough to break through the rules that the devs created. The ecosystem also fills out the world nicely, as each new area not only has treasure to find, but also new enemies to collect. Although I would say the major flaw of Echoes is their relevancy. If you just look at my most recent Echoes, number 1, the bed. You may get other platforms in the game, but the bed usually does the trick, and it's cheap, so you might as well just keep using it for the whole game. Number 2, level 3 Dark Nut. Summons generally become irrelevant once you get the newest big bad boy. For most fights, it just boiled down to summoning the level 3 Dark Nut and going into Sword Fighter form, which did indeed feel powerful, but I can't help but think there might have been a better way to limit summons, like a durability system, or perhaps being able to use each summon only once, like a certain challenge run on this channel. But I digress. They weren't trying to make a difficult game, which is fine, and it's a relatively smooth romp the whole way through. The only difficult fights I can really recall are the Ganon fight, because my timing is so bad on this ball charge move, and the Lionel puzzle, which really made you zero in on these environmental clues. Very cool. This new entry in the Zelda series was innovative, fun, comfy, and a little clumsy, but definitely sticks the landing as the best 2D Zelda on Switch. What would it take for a game to beat Zelda? Well, what if I told you there was a game with a strong focus on exploration and puzzles, a game with a combat system unlike anything I've ever played before, all wrapped in a beautiful pixelated world and an engaging story? Well, that game would be Crosscode. Yes, this indie darling has you take control of an amnesiac mute named Leah. We're sent out into Crossworld to learn who we truly are. Crossworlds is something like an MMORPG in this game's universe, where players log in and out and play using their unique avatars. So to every other character, this world's just a game, but for our character, it's the only world she knows. So we follow the game exploring areas and clearing dungeons with our friend Emily, who we meet shortly after arriving. And these dungeons are no joke. Some of these puzzles will really test your noggin. Honestly, they're some of the best puzzles I've played in a game like this, with a nice balance of makes you think, but not so hard that you spin your wheels for too long. Every dungeon is also a race with Emily, giving you a sense of urgency to solve the puzzles and clear the enemies as efficiently as possible. And speaking of clearing enemies, this game's combat is something else, with essentially 2 modes of fighting. When you're far away, it's a twin-stick shooter, and when you're close up, you mash for that melee damage, as well as having the ability to shield to block damage. On top of that, there's stagger meters for enemies that once they fill up, you can do massive damage, and that's not even mentioning the massive skill trees and elemental techniques to unlock. There's just so much here, but it's never overwhelming. But you're gonna have to get pretty good at it, because the game does not mess around at it when it gets to bosses. I even found myself using consumables, which is a thing I rarely do in games. In most Souls-likes, I just act like a little goblin hoarder and keep everything to myself. Like I could use this humanity for this boss fight, but I could also save it for when I really need it, and then I immediately die. So all this is good and well, discovering memories as you play through a video game world, but it's the second act of the plot where things get cranked up to 11, suddenly conspiracies are revealed, characters are turned on their head, and it's a non-stop roller coaster of emotions all the way to the end. And I could stop there, but I didn't even talk about exploration. There's so much to find in this game between all its nooks and crannies, and exploration also has an emphasis on platforming, which is another unique twist for a 2D RPG like this. Everything about Crosscode just feels so dynamic and fresh to me that I couldn't recommend it more, and I think I might just go in and enjoy the DLC after I finish this video. Now here's another exciting branch out from my regular repertoire. Away from the cozy world of Nintendo, it's time to enter a world of ghouls, wyverns, and monsters. Yes, it's time to become a Witcher. Last time I branched out and tried a non-Zelda or Souls open world, I was kind of burned by Hogwarts Legacy, but Witcher 3 is no such case. This world is bleak, the people are struggling, they're suffering everywhere you go, but the map is absolutely littered with things to do. I mean, just look at this map. Okay, that was just the tutorial area. Here's the real area. Unbelievable. I found myself trying to play the game as organically as possible, so I turned off all the overwhelming map markers and minimap whenever possible. This just let me stumble across things sometimes, and made it a genuine surprise instead of just going from marker to marker and checking things off a checklist. Which is kinda how I felt the missions went sometimes, but luckily the story and dialogue of this game really carried it. The overall premise is pretty simple with trying to find Ciri, but it's the little stops along the way that really hit home. I still remember how heartfelt and emotional all the scenes of the Bloody Baron are. He's a man who's lost everything to the drink and is trying his best to put his broken family back together. He was clearly the problem in the situation, but watching him grasp at straws at anything he can to possibly fix his unforgivable actions was truly heartbreaking. And then there's a mission with a fellow Witcher named Letho, where you get into this scuffle, he gets a crossbolt into his chest, and they try to take his head to prove that he has been killed, but you convince them only to take the medallion instead, and they leave without a fight. But it's only after this that you realize that Letho had taken some poison berries that just made him seem dead, and he was in fact alive the whole time. Making decisions like this that actually save characters' lives, and I was so close to just letting them take the head because I was 100% convinced he was already dead. I had no inkling of these poison berries or whatever they could do. But it also helped that these cutscenes were in the middle of a dark storm, which made everything seem so much more intense. And that you only have a limited time to make these decisions sometimes, which really puts the pressure on. But these are some of the few times in gaming where I feel like my decisions truly had major impacts on the story flow, on who lives and dies, and whether people get their happy endings, or at least as happy as they can be in the world of Witcher. And on a lighter note here is the cute little game called Gwent, which certainly wins my Game Within a Game of the Year, just like Sea of Stars' Wheels game the year before. This simple little card game has but one goal: have a higher strength than your opponent. Win 2 out of the 3 rounds and the game is yours. Of course, the fun comes into play with the different ability cards and the insanely strong hero cards, different card classes, and so on and so forth. I also love how you just accrue cards from playing the game, buying it from shops or earning it from other people that you can play against, as it always incentivizes me to keep going forward in the game to find what amazing new cards I might see next. But enough about card games, how about the combat? While I enjoyed the different weapon systems and monster vials, I think the battle flow was pretty smooth overall with the parries and the hard swings, light swings, all that jazz. But I don't think it's anything too crazy. It's just kind of pretty good combat, I would say. In the end, though, this game ended up being my most played game of the year with 117 hours. Holy cow. And that's without the DLC. After all that witchering, I won't be diving into the DLC for quite a bit yet, but with the Witcher 4 hype building, I'm sure to get the itch any day now. And now, something that I knew was going to be special from the start. A chill, atmospheric Metroidvania where you interact with the many animals of its mysterious world. Yes, this is the indie Animal Well. Right from the start, I was struck by this game's sound design, as I could hear every leaf gently rustle, the quiet drips of the water, and the echo of the cave. It all together put me in a mood that made this game just feel so real. Like this was a strange world with similar animals that I've seen before, but everything is just slightly changed from the real world. Which means that this game can offer you the peaceful serenity in its calming ponds. But just when you think you're safe, this horrifying dog creature starts chasing you, and run, there's no time, run! There's a lot of animals like this that genuinely freak me out when they enter the screen, giving you that classic horror feeling of not quite knowing what's around the next corner. From download all the way to the credits, it was all Animal Well all the time. Every room's bite-sized puzzle making me want to go to do just one more room or find just one more goodie. And the map is so dense that even when I felt like I had thoroughly combed over an area, there were still several collectibles left to find. And those items, oh, I love that little bubble wand. The coolest thing about the items are finding the different ways you can use them. Like the bubble wand, which makes a platform for you to jump on, but if you jump and lay a bubble at the exact same time, you can do it continuously to gain infinite height and distance. Discovering this was such an empowering feeling, making me feel like I had broken the game, since I was immediately able to climb up the titular Animal Well long before I was supposed to. But because I learned this so early, I didn't really experiment with the other items, so I didn't learn until way later some of the other cool mechanics of the other items. Which reminds me that one of the things that makes this game so amazing is sharing the little secrets you find with others. Of course I want to solve everything on my own, but it's also fun to exchange secrets like, hey, I found this crazy thing that's gonna blow your mind. And the game is so full of secrets that there's just always more to find. I'll just say that whenever you feel like you're done with Animal Well, there's always another layer of secrets to find. Truly a mysterious and wondrous experience from start to finish, Animal Well holds a special place in my heart. And now we go from goofy little blob guy to feudal era samurai with a prosthetic arm. Yes, continuing my trend of playing a new Souls-like every year, I finally got around to playing Sekiro. And this time, it was for the boys. We had 5 of us playing at the same time, and it was super exciting to share all our experiences back and forth in that lightning in a bottle experience that's unlike anything else. And I may be fresh out of the game with a touch of recency bias, but this just might be better than any of the other Dark Souls games. The parrying gameplay is just that satisfying. As you go from a bumbling buffoon at the beginning, unable to parry a thing, to the end of the game nailing parries into Makiri counters into weapon combo arts and melting the boss's health bar like it's no big deal. The game's combat really forces you to get into this parry system by rewarding aggressive gameplay in order to keep that stagger bar high, which is usually much easier than just lowering the health bar. Although the old poke and run strategy is also quite handy, as I found out on the Corrupted Monk, who seems to instantly reset his stagger bar. Don't know what's up with that, but I just found openings and would get a safe hit and then run away. It just turned a 5-minute fight into a 20-minute fight, but even though I was way underleveled compared to my friends, I achieved victory all the same. And I love that feeling of finding a different way to play a game, even if it was a somewhat cowardly way to do it. I absolutely adore the lightning parry mechanic. A little trickier to pull off since you need to be in the air to get this combo, but in a game that doesn't have a magic system, it feels incredible to redirect lightning at your foe to deal the final blow. Unlike many Soulsborns, you're stuck with just one weapon the whole time through this game. And while I did miss swapping out my weapons a little bit, if I'm being honest, in most Souls games, I just pick one weapon and run with it the whole way through. But instead of new weapons, we get these cool prosthetic arm abilities that act like secondary weapons. My personal favorite being the Coward's Umbrella, when I don't know how to dodge an attack, and the Flame Vent, for triggering that handy fire status, which a surprising amount of enemies are weak to. And my least favorite is the Firecracker, which I never used because someone told me it was really good on a boss, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna be stubborn and fight the boss without using any of the secondary weapons, and I ended up beating it and felt really good, and I feel great about it. And speaking of enemy weaknesses, everyone is weak to backstabs, which instantly kills most enemies and takes a whole health bar off of bosses. This system pairs especially well with the game's emphasis on stealth. Instead of blazing into enemy fire, it's typically better to sneak around and take out enemies one by one instead of taking them out of a group. And thanks to playing Metal Gear Solid this year, I was more than ready to utilize my new stealthy skill set. The quests in this game weren't all too deep, but I did enjoy interacting with all the characters who have their separate motivations, even if most of them just boil down to wanting that sweet taste of immortal life. I did enjoy the bond you have with Kuro though, which gave me motivation to face any foe, even if it's a poop-slinging monkey. As it is with many of my favorite games though, this game's exploration is peak. as the game branches out to many different areas at various points, giving players some agency of where exactly they want to go, which for me led to me getting one of the magical MacGuffins early before I was even asked to get it. Truly, this game is an epic journey of a lone samurai that I will not soon forget. Some games when they're released have that magic that just hooks you immediately, and you can't think of anything else except playing that game some more. But usually when a sequel comes out to a game that magical, it somewhat diminishes the magic. It becomes a bit of a repetitive trot. But if you're lucky, a sequel can become oh so grand and possibly even surpass the original in some ways. And that is what happened this year with Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. While it's technically not a sequel and technically not its own game either, it was by far the best thing I played in 2024. Right from the get-go, you're hit with optional bosses like this Claw Warrior in the woods that gives you this awesome new weapon. There's bigger-than-life enemies on the horizon that feel impossible to beat, cool new dragon boss fights on the lake, and dungeon that feels like Stormveil 2.0. It is the return of peak and the freedom. Oh, the freedom. I had some friends end up in a spooky forest early on, some that fought a dual-wielding wizard, and you know me, I like my dragons, so the second boss I found was the accursed Baal, who has the best NPC summon in all of gaming. It still rings in my head to this day. Curse you, Baal! Behold, a true Drake warrior, and I, he god, your fears made flesh. And that's not even mentioning the build-up. As you climb a mountain that never seems to peak, felling dragon after dragon, the lightning storm only growing into its crescendo as you reach the peak and face the fearsome Baal. This whole sequence is absolutely one of my favorites in all of gaming. But of course, with all open world games, there were moments of, how do I get there? Why don't I have this last map? But a light hint from a friend, and I'm back to being blown away by the world of Shadow of Erdtree. With my Dex Faith build, I messed around with a couple of weapons, but eventually landed on the Sacred Relic Sword, which you get from the Elden Beast Remembrance. And holy cow, with my level 80 Faith, this thing did insane damage with its Wave of Gold ability, flattening most enemies in no time flat. Even the final boss got melted by this bad boy, until the inevitable second phase where he gains that darn holy resistance. I guess it wouldn't be Elden Ring if it was easy. And one of the things I think this game improved on most is the NPCs. For the first time in any FromSoft game, I felt like I was actually following along with NPC quest lines, without any guides. From Tholier trying to find St. Trina, to helping out Old Man Ansbach defeat his enemies. And towards the end of the game, when you end up fighting those who you didn't help and summoning those who you did, it's like a culmination of all your effort being rewarded. Although I wish I didn't have to fight more. He's such a good guy. But that just goes to show how well he's written if I'm feeling compassion for the enemy. Truly, there is nothing like getting lost in a FromSoft game, exploring every little corner to uncover its secrets, and then getting slammed by an impossible boss. The immense gratification of triumph, and then returning to that oh-so-addictive exploration cycle. I can't wait for From Software's next Elden Ring adventure, but for now, it seems I'll have to. But if you don't mind me, I think I'm just gonna get back to a fresh Elden Ring playthrough while I'm waiting. I think I might try leveling my stats evenly this time, just to be a little devious. Thank you so much for watching this year's Top 10 Games video, and feel free to leave your own list or favorites that you played this year as well. And with all that, I will see you later.